Yiskadol v'yiskadosh Shemei Rabbo B'yomod yivrach chirutei v'yamlich malkutei B'chol yechon uvyom echon Uv'chayei lechol beit Yisrael Bagala Uvizman koriv V'yimeru If you didn't notice, it is Leon Charney, that is I, and I am introducing my book of The Mystery of the Kaddish. I've talked about this book for practically 6 months, and now it is finally in publication. And many people have asked me to describe lots of ideas, why I did the book, how I did the book, how it all came about. One of the key members of editing and giving me inspiration and dedication and great rewrites was Professor Nathaniel Loar, a renowned psychiatrist and philosopher from the Tel Aviv University, Yale University, and in my opinion, as you will see if you ever touch or read this book, one of the great Talmudic scholars. And I thought that perhaps you would like to hear him ask me a few questions about the book. So I'm going to turn over the show to Professor Loar. And if you want to know a lot about Jewish history and a lot about the Kaddish prayer, stay tuned with us. We'll be right back after a break.
The Leon Charney Report is now being podcast. Download the program at npr.org or iTunes.
Yizgadol v'yizgadosh Shemei Rabbo different rendition of Kaddish, and you can see by reading this book, if you do buy the book or somehow your friend gives it to you, there are many different cantorial versions of Kaddish. So stay tuned for our interview. I'm now on the other side, and Professor Loar is going to ask me all the questions. And you notice when I get serious on the show, I wear the glasses, so I'm ready. Welcome, Professor Loar.
Welcome, Leon.
Nice to be at my own show.
Leon, it was a privilege to be in your book party yesterday. It was such a heartfelt and heartwarming event. Everybody loved it. I spoke to many people after the event, and everybody loved the words, the atmosphere, as well as the book.
It's real ironic to celebrate a Kaddish book, isn't it?
But you opened the show with the cantorian music.
Right.
Where have you inherited the cantorian music from?
From my father's genes, probably. I think to be a cantor, you can study voice, and you can study projection, and you can study all different musicology. But I think most cantors, good cantors, are born, and they have to have that certain trill in their voice that they're able to get. And as a kid, when I was about 9, 10, I used to pick up a Jewish prayer book and create my own tunes. And then you learn all those roles, which are very difficult to do.
Extremely difficult.
Neil Diamond choked on it 6 times trying to do Kol Nidre and jazz singer. But we Jews are strong, we overcome.
Are you still performing?
I sing every so often at some synagogues in New York, sometimes at weddings for friends. I wouldn't say the Internal Revenue has to check my box on income on that, because usually I do it as a gesture of charity. But I do sing a lot, yes.
Yeah. And about this book, Leon, How did you get interested in the topic? Seems sort of unrelated to what you're doing.
Well, spirituality helps. Unfortunately, my mother had died, and I had to sit Shiva, which is the 7 days of mourning that Jews partake in, and I had to face this dilemma of going to the synagogue twice a day, every day, for 11 months, sometimes 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, and 3 at night, whenever sundown came. And so you have to correspond your life to a regiment which you're really not used to. And I was not against it, but I was wondering why we Jews do it. And I got very curious, so I spoke to a few rabbis, and I said, well, who authored this Kaddish? Why are we saying this Kaddish? And what does it mean? Is it for death? Because I knew Kaddish had nothing to do with death itself. And I didn't have an answer. So I met my co-writer, Saul Meislish, who's an Israeli religious journalist who had written a book with Rabbi Lau, the chief rabbi of Israel, on Jewish tradition. And I thought, well, he's a scholar, I'll ask him. And he said, it's a mystery. So I said, okay, why don't we write a book on the mystery of the Kaddish, which is what we did. 3 years later, it's a nice book, hopefully.
Ever since you raised the question, I was going around asking. Talmudic scholars, everybody had the answer. Oh, this is a traditional prayer. It's from the Talmud. And your book refutes it.
Well, they didn't think it came from the New Testament, did they?
But nobody knew the answer.
Nobody knew. I've made more money on this book by having people bet against me than I will in selling royalties probably on this book. I know. I went to yeshiva 98 years. I study every night. I go to Kollel, which is a learning group. I study from 9 to 9, and then I take a break. I have coffee. I go back. I know. Everybody knows. I said, I bet you $20, $100, $50. They came back. No one knew the answer. So I got a whole income out of betting on who knew the Kaddish.